New kid on campus. The bus hissed, expelling Maya onto the curb with a sigh. Northwood University loomed before her, a sprawling kingdom of brick and glass. Gargantuan oak trees, their leaves a riot of autumnal colors, guarded its edges. Maya swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. This was it. She clutched her worn backpack straps tighter, the weight of her textbooks a small comfort in this alien landscape. Unfolding the orientation map felt like a betrayal. The neatly drawn lines and labeled buildings seemed to mock her disorientation. Armstrong Hall, where are you? She muttered, squinting at the tiny print. The air hummed with the energy of 1,000 conversations, laughter, and the rhythmic thump of bass from unseen speakers. Everywhere she looked, students flowed in purposeful streams, their faces alight with confidence and familiarity. Maya felt like a lone salmon swimming upstream, acutely aware of her own awkwardness. She started walking, following the map's suggestion to head towards the student union. Each step felt like an amplified drumbeat in her ears. The sheer scale of everything was overwhelming. Buildings that looked identical stretched on, and the meticulously manicured lawns seemed to whisper criticisms of her scuffed sneakers. A sudden gust of wind snatched at her map, nearly ripping it from her hands. She wrestled it back, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She needed to find Armstrong Hall. Her first class, Introduction to Philosophy, started in 20 minutes. Lost in her map and her anxieties, she didn't see them coming. A wall of chattering bodies, moving with the careless swagger of seasoned inhabitants. A shriek of surprised laughter, then impact. Her books went flying, scattering across the paved pathway like fallen leaves. Her meticulously organized notes, her carefully highlighted readings all strewn in a chaotic mess. A wave of heat flushed her face. "Oh my God, watch where you're going, freshman," a voice dripped with saccharine condescension. Maya looked up to see a girl with perfectly coiffed blonde hair, and eyes like chips of ice staring down at her. Two other girls flanked her, their expressions mirroring her disdain. They were a matched set, radiating an aura of effortless cool. Maya scrambled to gather her scattered belongings, her fingers fumbling with the loose pages. I'm so sorry," she stammered, her voice barely a whisper. She risked a glance at the trio. The blonde girl's lip curled into a sneer. "Seriously? You're going to be that girl? The one who trips over everything and apologizes profusely?" She laughed, a brittle, unpleasant sound. "Just try not to drool on our shoes, okay?" Maya averted her gaze, shame burning in her cheeks. She clutched her books to her chest, a fragile shield against their mocking stares. The faces of the other students blurred into an indistinguishable mass. Every eye seemed to be on her, judging, laughing. The noise of the campus, which had moments ago seemed merely overwhelming, now threatened to suffocate her. She just wanted to disappear. She mumbled another apology, her voice cracking, and hurried away, leaving a few stray pages of her philosophy notes fluttering in her wake. Armstrong Hall seemed further away than ever. The bruiser's target. Brad, the bruiser. Miller leaned against the sundial, the setting sun highlighting the silver skull on his ring. Boredom gnawed at him. The Peloponnesian War lecture had been an exercise in tedium, and the familiar coil of tension in his stomach demanded release. He needed something to break the monotony. His gaze swept the quad, locking onto a small figure near the library. The new girl, Maya Nguyen. He'd spotted her navigating campus with a skittishness reminiscent of a frightened bird, books clutched tight, eyes flickering nervously. Ideal. A slow, cruel smile stretched across Brad's face. He watched her fidget with her backpack strap, her posture suggesting she anticipated a blow at any moment. Pitiful. The knot in his stomach loosened a fraction. This could work. He pushed off the sundial, affecting a casual air. He sauntered over to his usual companions, Kyle, forever wearing a look of bewildered surprise, and Tony, whose physique outweighed his intellect, who were engaged in a game of frisbee. "Gentlemen," Brad drawled, intercepting the disc with a flourish. "I have an idea." Kyle's eyebrows nearly disappeared into his hairline. "An idea? Like a party blowout?" Brad scoffed. "Something better. Remember Nguyen? The newbie who looks perpetually on the verge of tears." Tony flexed a bicep that threatened to tear his sleeve. "Yeah, so. I think she requires a little initiation," Brad murmured, tossing the frisbee back. He lowered his voice, a sly glint in his eyes. "Perhaps a touch of dumpster diving to acclimate her. A crash course in the realities of college." Kyle giggled. "You mean, freak her out?" "Freak her out?" "Hardly, Kyle," Brad countered, feigning innocence. "Simply, extending a welcome. Helping her shed some unnecessary burdens." He clapped Kyle on the shoulder with enough force to make him stumble. "Consider it community service." Tony cracked his knuckles, a sound like splintering wood. "Sounds entertaining. Where do we find her?" Brad gestured towards the rear of the science building. "She invariably uses that shortcut to the parking lot, past the bins. Perfect spot for a little surprise encounter." He glanced at his watch. "Let's move." She should appear momentarily. Remember, gentle encouragement only. No actual harm. Just motivating her to unburden herself. He headed off, his broad frame leading the way. Kyle and Tony followed, their smirks mirroring the dark anticipation that simmered within Brad. The rank odor of decaying refuse hung in the air near the dumpsters, a fitting backdrop for the drama they were about to enact. Brad halted just around the corner, signaling for the others to remain hidden. He leaned against the cool brick, straining to hear the hesitant approach of footsteps. The knot in his gut tightened again, but this time, it carried a thread of satisfaction. Almost. He just needed to see the fear bloom in her eyes. That was all it would take. Cornered. The reek of refuse stewed behind the cafeteria, a cloying metallic stench that made Maya gag. She hurried towards the library, craving the anonymous embrace of its towering stacks. Sanctuary beckoned. "Well, look what we have here," a voice bellowed, dripping with false joviality. Maya stopped dead. Brad? Flanked by his obsequious hangers-on, he formed an unyielding barricade. Brad the Bruiser Miller, a walking advertisement for testosterone poisoning, stood arms crossed, a sneer twisting his coarse features. A ray of the sinking sun caught the silver chain looped to his jeans. "Trying to ditch us, little mouse," squeaked one of Brad's shadows, his lank hair plastered to his scalp. Maya refused to acknowledge them, her gaze fixed on a mangled soda can at her feet, a testament to relentless force. Her knuckles ached as she clutched the strap of her worn backpack, the rough canvas biting into her skin. "What is that I saw?" Brad's tone was a sneer-given voice. He flicked a dismissive hand at her backpack, its faded floral pattern a relic from another era. Probably stuffed with dusty tomes and crochet hooks. A chorus of laughter erupted, sharp and grating, bouncing off the cafeteria's brick facade. A wave of heat flooded Maya's face, prickling her skin. She longed to vanish, to dissolve into the cracked asphalt under her shoes. "Just leave me alone, Brad," she breathed, the plea barely audible. Brad recoiled in exaggerated offense, clutching his chest. "Did you hear that, gentlemen? The rodent speaks. What's wrong, Buttercup? Can't handle the big leagues? Maybe community college is more your speed." He advanced, violating the small space she desperately tried to maintain. The cloying sweetness of cheap cologne mingled with the stale tang of cigarettes, a nauseating cocktail. She felt his body heat, a palpable intimidation. Seriously, though, Brad pressed, his voice dropping to a low, menacing rumble. That bag has to go. We could do a solid, you know. We could liberate you from it. He jerked his head towards the overflowing dumpsters, their contents a festering mass. The stench intensified, threatening to overwhelm her. She imagined the crushing weight of garbage, the suffocating darkness. Her grip on the backpack tightened until her fingers throbbed. More than just a bag, it was her armor, her lifeline. It held her textbooks, her notes, the tools she needed to navigate this daunting new landscape. She remained mute, her eyes glued to the ground. Any reaction, she knew, would only fuel their amusement. If she simply endured, perhaps they would eventually tire of their sport and move on. To be unseen. To be unbothered. That was all she craved. The backpack threat. The bell's shrill cry was a starting gun for chaos. Brad Miller, a human oak tree in a Letterman jacket, materialized in Maya's path. He smelled of cheap cologne and stale gym socks. Well, look what the cat dragged in, Brad drawled, his eyes glinting with a predatory light. A gaggle of his cronies snickered behind him, their smirks identical. Maya tried to sidestep him, but he anticipated her move, cutting her off with a clumsy swagger. Leave me alone, Brad, Maya mumbled, clutching her books tighter. He feigned surprise, his brow furrowing like a poorly ploughed field. Did I hear someone talking? Must be the wind. Then, quicker than she anticipated, his meaty hand shot out, snatching the strap of her backpack. The sudden force nearly yanked her off balance. Hey, she protested, her voice barely a whisper. Brad hoisted the backpack high, its worn fabric straining. What's in here, Nguyen? Top secret formulas for shrinking people. Maybe a lifetime supply of tissues for all that crying you do. He laughed, a booming, unpleasant sound. Maya's heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird. The blood rushed to her face, prickling her skin. Her vision tunneled, focusing solely on her backpack clutched in Brad's hand. It wasn't just textbooks and notebooks, it was her sanctuary, her connection to the life she'd left behind. Brad sauntered toward the overflowing dumpster, its stench of rotting food and stale coffee wafting in the air. He dangled the backpack precariously over the edge. 1, 2. Please, Brad, don't. Maya pleaded, her voice cracking. There's important stuff in there. My notes, my dad's watch. It was a lie, but she grasped at anything to stop him. His eyes flickered with a brief moment of uncertainty, quickly replaced by a cruel smirk. Oh, is the little newbie gonna cry? He gave the backpack another menacing swing. The metal buckle scraped against the dumpster's rim. Panic threatened to drown Maya. She could taste the metallic tang of fear on her tongue. This wasn't just about the backpack. It was about him stripping away her dignity, reducing her to nothing. But beneath the fear, something else stirred, a tiny ember refusing to be extinguished. A spark of defiance, fueled by years of quiet discipline and a burning desire to be seen, to be heard. She tightened her fists, the pads of her fingers digging into her palms. Flashback, the dojo. The mingled aromas of cedar wood and exertion formed a familiar embrace within the dojo's walls. Sunlight sliced through the paper screens, casting a mosaic of light and shadow upon the well-worn mats. 7 years old, Maya stood ramrod straight, her oversized GI swallowing her small frame. Again, Maya Chen, Bien Goai's voice, a deep, resonant comfort, echoed in the space. He demonstrated the age yoke, his aged limbs still lithe with practiced grace. Channel a tempest through your arm, little one. Use your whole being. She mimicked the block, her tiny fist wavering, elbow drooping. Like this, Bien Goi. With a gentle hand, he straightened her stance, his touch a warm anchor against her spine. No, little sparrow. Root yourself. Let the earth cradle you. That is the source of your power. He nudged her heel. Days blurred into weeks, then years. The dojo became more than just a training hall, it was her refuge. The sharp jolt of a failed defense, the delightful ache of overworked muscles, the surge of pride from a flawless kata, these were the lessons etched onto her soul. She practiced relentlessly, her initial clumsiness yielding to newfound grace. The too large gi eventually fit, then strained, replaced time and again as she grew. She faced older, stronger students, absorbing their knowledge, anticipating their assaults. Aggression didn't come naturally, but Bien Goi instilled in her that karate was about self-control, respect, and unwavering protection, about unearthing the inner fortitude to safeguard herself and others. Years matured into nearly a decade. The dojo buzzed with anticipation, filled to bursting with family and friends, their faces beaming with pride. 16 now, Maya faced Bien Goi, her pulse a frantic drum against her ribs. She had just completed the final kata, her every motion a testament to years of dedication and training. The air crackled with unspoken emotion as Bien Goi approached, his eyes radiating affection. He presented a black belt, the embodiment of mastery, a symbol of unwavering commitment. More than fabric, it represented countless hours of sweat, sacrifice, and unshakable self-belief. Maya-chan, his voice resonated with emotion, you have brought honor to yourself, your family, and this dojo. You have proven that true strength resides not only in physical prowess, but in the resilience of your spirit. He secured the belt around her waist, its weight a reassuring presence. Bowing, a wave of confidence flooded her. She was no longer just Maya Nguyen, the timid girl. She had transformed into a warrior, forged in the crucible of discipline and unwavering faith. She was ready to meet whatever lay ahead. Unexpected defense. The humid night air hung thick and heavy, smelling of stale pizza and desperation. Brad, a hulking shadow against the flickering fluorescent lights of the back alley, smirked. Well, 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 look what we have here. Little Miss Quiet. Guess the library's closed, huh? Maya hugged her books tighter, the thin paper covers crinkling in her sweaty grip. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drum solo in the sudden silence. She swallowed, trying to find her voice, but it felt lost, buried beneath a wave of fear. Leave me alone, Brad, she finally managed, the words a shaky whisper. He chuckled, a low rumble that vibrated in the air. Alone? But where's the fun in that, Nguyen? You think you can just waltz in here, all quiet and mousy, and not pay your dues? He took a step closer, the smell of cheap beer and stale cigarettes radiating off him. This is our territory. And you're trespassing. The dumpster loomed behind her, a dark, greasy, more promising humiliation. He reached out, his hand like a meaty paw, and shoved. The world tilted. For a split second, Maya saw stars, the brick wall rushing up to meet her. But then, something primal kicked in. Years of discipline, of sweat and aching muscles, surfaced from the depths of her memory. It wasn't a conscious thought, more like an instinctive reaction honed over countless hours in the dojo. Her left leg shot out, a blur of motion, hooking behind her right knee. She pivoted, using the momentum of Brad's shove against him, twisting her body and planting her hands on the grimy concrete. It was a textbook Koshigurumo escape, a hip wheel, designed to regain balance and deflect force. She landed lightly on her feet, a few feet to Brad's left, facing him. The movement was so swift, so unexpected, it left him blinking in stunned silence. Her books tumbled to the ground, scattering like fallen leaves, but she barely noticed. Brad stared, his mouth slightly agape, the smirk completely gone. His eyes, usually narrowed in a perpetual sneer, were wide with disbelief. He looked less like the bruiser and more like a confused bear cub. "What the?" he stammered, his voice losing its usual swagger. He shuffled his feet, his bravado momentarily deflated. The alley seemed to shrink, the shadows pressing in, no longer his allies, but silent witnesses to his unexpected discomfiture. Maya stood her ground, her chest heaving, her eyes fixed on him. The fear hadn't entirely vanished, but it was now laced with a strange, unfamiliar feeling, defiance. The bully stumbles. Brad Miller's grin was wide, too wide, like a predator baring its teeth. He advanced on Maya, each step a calculated measure of intimidation. "So, little Miss Quiet. Still think you can hide in the library forever?" He reached for her arm, his thick fingers outstretched like grasping claws. But Maya didn't flinch. Instead, with a speed that defied her earlier timidity, she shifted. One moment she was shrinking back, the next she was a coiled spring unleashed. Her hand shot out, not to strike, but to deftly redirect Brad's momentum. It was a subtle movement, almost invisible, a gentle nudge against his forward surge. Brad, expecting a cowering victim, hadn't braced himself. He was all bluster and no balance. The unexpected shift in his weight threw him off. He flailed, his arms windmilling, a strangled woe escaping his lips. Behind him, a haphazard stack of empty pizza boxes, remnants of a late-night study session fueled by greasy pepperoni, awaited its ignominious fate. Brad, in his clumsy retreat, stumbled backward, his broad back connecting squarely with the precariously balanced tower. Cardboard erupted. A cacophony of rustling and collapsing filled the air as the pizza boxes gave way, engulfing Brad in a brown, greasy avalanche. He landed with a thump, half buried in cardboard squares and discarded crusts. A rogue pepperoni clung to his cheek like a grotesque beauty mark. A beat of stunned silence hung in the air. Then, a snicker. It started subtly, a nervous giggle from one of Brad's cronies, quickly suppressed. But then another joined in, and another, until a wave of barely contained laughter rippled through the small group. Even Tony, Brad's most loyal sycophant, couldn't quite manage to keep a straight face, his lips twitching uncontrollably. Brad, still sprawled amidst the cardboard carnage, his face flushed a furious red, scrambled to his feet. The pepperoni dislodged itself and fell to the ground. He looked like a wounded bear, dignity lost, pride shattered. Maya stood tall, her posture radiating a newfound confidence. The tremor that had haunted her voice was gone, replaced by a steely resolve. "Leave me alone, Brad," she said, her voice clear and firm, cutting through the stifled laughter. "Just, leave me alone." Her words hung in the air, amplified by the awkward silence that followed. The laughter died down completely. Brad, for the first time, seemed unsure of himself, his usual swagger replaced by a flicker of something that might have been shame. He glared at Maya, then at his snickering friends, his face a mask of barely contained rage. He opened his mouth to speak, probably to retort with a cruel joke, but no sound came out. He simply turned, shoving past his friends, and stormed off, leaving behind a trail of crumpled cardboard and simmering resentment. The snickers followed him, a mocking chorus to his retreat. Professor Thompson intervenes. The air crackled with Brad's simmering rage. He balled his fists, his knuckles bone-white, and surged forward. "All right, sweetheart, you want to play tough? Let's see how tough you are against a real man." Maya didn't flinch. As Brad lumbered toward her, she moved with a speed that belied her earlier nervousness. A swift, precise block intercepted his clumsy charge, stopping him dead in his tracks. The force of the block reverberated through Brad's arm, a jolt of unexpected resistance. He stumbled back, momentarily stunned. What the? Maya shifted her weight, her eyes focused and calm. Her stance, previously hunched and timid, transformed. She stood tall, one leg forward, hands raised in a textbook karate position, ready to strike. The fluorescent lights of the campus reflecting off her dark eyes gave her an almost predator-like appearance. This was not the skittish girl he'd been tormenting. A collective gasp rippled through the small crowd that had gathered, drawn by the escalating tension. Even Brad seemed momentarily taken aback, the bluster momentarily draining from his face, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. The tense silence was broken by a sharp, authoritative voice. Miller. What in the world do you think you're doing? Professor Thompson, a wiry woman with a no-nonsense demeanor and a gaze that could bore through steel, strode into the scene. Her grey hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her tweed jacket seemed to amplify her already formidable presence. She planted herself between Brad and Maya, a human shield against his aggression. Brad's bravado faltered. Professor Thompson, it's not what it looks like. This girl was being disrespectful. He gestured vaguely, his voice losing its usual booming quality, shrinking to a petulant whine. Professor Thompson's eyes narrowed. Disrespectful? I saw the whole thing, Miller. You were attempting to intimidate Ms. She turned to Maya, her expression softening slightly. Nguyen, Maya supplied, her voice barely a whisper, though the steely glint in her eyes remained. Ms. Nguyen. And I must say, Mr. Miller, your behavior is completely unacceptable. This is a place of learning, not a playground for bullies. I expect a full apology to Ms. Nguyen, and I expect to see you in my office after class tomorrow. Do I make myself clear? Brad mumbled a reluctant apology, his face flushed with humiliation. The crowd, sensing the shift in power, began to disperse, their whispers following him like a swarm of angry bees. He glared at Maya, a silent promise of retribution hanging in the air, before turning and stomping away, his earlier swagger completely gone. Professor Thompson turned back to Maya, her expression concerned. Are you all right, Ms. Nguyen? He didn't hurt you, did he? Maya lowered her stance, the confidence momentarily fading, replaced by a flicker of the earlier vulnerability. I'm fine, Professor. Thank you. Good. Don't let him intimidate you. He's all bark and no bite, really. And if he bothers you again, you come straight to me. Understood. Maya nodded, a small, grateful smile gracing her lips. The bell signaling the start of class rang, and Professor Thompson gave Maya a reassuring pat on the shoulder before heading inside, leaving Maya alone in the now quiet courtyard, the echoes of Brad's failed intimidation still hanging in the air. A new beginning. Brad's face was a roadmap of fury and humiliation. His usual bluster was gone, replaced by a petulant pout that stretched his features into something almost comical. Whatever, he muttered, spitting the word out like a bad taste. He shoved past the small knot of onlookers, his two cronies, Mark and Dave, trailing behind him like dejected puppies. Mark, ever the sycophant, tried to salvage the situation. Hey, Brad, she probably cheated, right? Some kinda trick move. Brad rounded on him, his voice a low growl. Just shut up, Mark. He kicked at a stray pebble, sending it skittering across the quad. The laughter, though muffled, followed them, a persistent reminder of his public defeat. He felt the burn of their gazes on his back, and it stoked the fire of his rage. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was Brad, the bruiser Miller. People didn't laugh at him. Maya was still trembling slightly, the adrenaline slowly receding, leaving a hollow ache in its wake. Her books were scattered around her, a testament to the unexpected confrontation. A warm hand touched her arm, and she flinched, then relaxed as she saw Professor Thompson kneeling beside her, gathering her scattered belongings. "Are you all right, Ms. Nguyen?" he asked, his voice laced with genuine concern. His eyes, usually twinkling behind his spectacles, were serious. Maya nodded, a small, shaky movement. "Yes, Professor. Thank you." She helped him collect her things, the rough texture of the concrete scraping against her knuckles. He handed her the last book, a worn copy of Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. "Brad Miller can be overzealous. Don't let him discourage you. You handled yourself admirably." He paused, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Actually, Ms. Nguyen, I run the University Karate Club. We meet Tuesdays and Thursdays. I think you'd find it beneficial." Maya looked at him, surprised. The Karate Club. She'd always kept her training a secret, a private sanctuary. But the thought of a structured environment, a place where her skills wouldn't be seen as a threat, but as an asset, it was appealing. The isolation of the last few weeks had been stifling. Professor Thompson smiled gently, sensing her hesitation. "No pressure, of course. But I saw your footwork out there. You have a natural talent. And a black belt should not be kept hidden." A slow smile spread across Maya's face, chasing away the last vestiges of fear. It felt good to be seen, to be acknowledged for her strength, not just pitied for her perceived weakness. "I'd like that very much, Professor," she said, her voice gaining confidence. "I'll see you on Tuesday." The thought of the dojo, the familiar scent of canvas mats and sweat, filled her with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt since arriving at State. This could be a new beginning, a chance to truly belong.